Kazakhstan?
There were 12 people in the boardroom. Lawyers, pretty talented group, really. Kind of don't miss much. And when the word Kazakhstan came through, coming from a person talking on a phone call that came in, 11 of them burst out laughing. Not a polite chuckle, a pretty hearty laugh. The kind that intimates, hey, it's not worth our time. I was the only one in that room of 12 that didn't laugh. Not because I knew something they didn't. I didn't, at least not yet. It was 1997. I was a junior lawyer working out of a Toronto law firm. Kazakhstan had only been independent for 6 years. I didn't hear of anybody lining up to go there, but something in that phone call felt like a door opening. And I've learned sometimes you walk through a door before you know exactly what's on the other side. Here's what happened when I walked through that door. We were in the middle of this was a marketing meeting, 12 of us trying to figure out how to grow the firm over the next 12 months. It's the kind of meeting that tends to, move in circles, trying to get those creative juices flowing. Then the phone rings, and it was a consulting firm calling from Miami. They had a project, a significant one, in Kazakhstan, legal and institutional reform. They needed a firm with the right capabilities, and they thought that we were the firm. So they were asking us if we would be interested in having some people head over to Kazakhstan. Well, the laughter in the room was almost immediate. Kazakhstan, right, sure. Now, I want to be fair to my colleagues. It wasn't malicious. It just was instinctive, kind of reaction smart people have when something falls outside their map of the world, so to speak, when it doesn't fit the pattern of what they're used to saying yes or no to. But I sat there and I thought, well, wait a minute. What are they actually describing? What was actually on the table? A newly independent country building its legal and institutional frameworks from scratch. Complex, multidisciplinary work. The kind of project you wouldn't be filling in forms, you'd be helping design a system. But those forms would eventually live inside. That's not a laughing matter. That's genuinely, at least potentially interesting work. And so I said so to the others in the room. Wasn't exactly uplifting enthusiasm. There was a suggestion that I put together a proposal for the executive committee. And so I did. Now here's where it gets interesting, because I had been doing most of the work for one of the founding partners of the firm. And he wasn't on the executive committee, but nevertheless, of course, founding partners carry weight. It's just how it works. He intervened behind the scenes and let it be known to the executive committee that he didn't want the firm taking this on. I thought about that moment over the years, and I understand it. I'd been a productive part of his practice. I was reliable. The last thing he wanted was for me to be pulling energy in another direction, particularly if it was on the other side of the world. And so he said, it's a no-go. It's not unreasonable, and actually from where he stood, it made a lot of sense. But from where I stood, it felt different. Here's the thing about working hard and doing good work, but for someone else. At some point, you start asking whether you're building something for yourself or whether you're just building someone else's thing. And I wasn't sure I had a good answer to that question at that time. So the proposal was a no-go from the executive committee, and I had a decision to make. I went home and I talked to my wife. Sounds simple. It's not exactly a normal conversation or a simple one. I asked her, what would you think if we spent some time in Kazakhstan with our kids? Um, now, appreciate what I was asking. This wasn't a company relocation with a housing allowance and a mapped out plan. This was, I have a feeling about this, and I'm thinking about resigning from a stable position at a reputable firm. And I was wondering whether that feeling was right. But she didn't hesitate in that conversation. She said she was in. That turned out that ultimately she wasn't. But anyway, for this purpose, she said she was in. And because she said she was in, and it mattered to me that she would be supportive, then I could go forward and give serious consideration to this whole thing. And so, I made a call. I called the Miami firm and posed a question. I asked them, look, if the law firm isn't coming, would you want me anyway? And the answer was an emphatic yes. So I went back to the law firm and I said clearly and directly, I intend to do this work. So if it's not possible with the firm, it would be something on my own. And their response was quite clear. If I was going to do this, I would need to resign. And so that's what I did. Now, just think about that for a second, because I think sometimes people hear a story like this and they project a kind of recklessness onto it, like I was throwing caution to the wind. But that's not how it felt from the inside. It felt like clarity, not certainty. I couldn't be certain. I didn't know how it would go. I couldn't. But I was clear on what I thought the opportunity was, clear on what I was willing to trade for it, and clear that staying out of habit or comfort or fear of the unknown wasn't the right answer. There's a difference between recklessness and deliberate risk. Recklessness ignores the downside. Deliberate risk looks at the downside, decides it's acceptable, and moves. That's what I did. The Kazakhstan project was operational when I arrived, but I didn't just participate in it. I was asked very quickly to take over as the project lead. We were building something real, the legislation, the administrative frameworks, the implementation, the kind of work where you would see the effect of what you were doing in the institutions being created around you. And that work led to more work. Other multilateral agencies took notice. They reached out and asked if I'd be interested in similar projects elsewhere. And I was. Over the years that followed that one phone call, the one that made 11 lawyers laugh, led to assignments in 15 countries. Different cultures, different systems, different problems. Every one of them interesting. Every one of them teaching me something I could not have learned sitting in a boardroom in Toronto. I think about that founding partner from time to time. I don't carry any resentment about the way he went about things. He was protecting his interests. That's fair. But the moment he pushed back was also the moment that forced me to decide whether I was going to protect my own interests. And I'm glad that I took the step that I took. Now, I'm not telling you this story so you'll go out and resign from something tomorrow. Context matters. Circumstances matter. I had a partner at the time who was willing to take the leap with me, and that's not a small thing. What I am saying is this. At every decision point in that sequence, in the boardroom, the conversation with my wife, the call to Miami, the conversation with the firm, I didn't have complete information. I couldn't. Nobody in that situation would have. What I had was a signal, and I'd learned to take signals seriously. So here's the lesson, at least as I see it. There's a version of professional life, and a lot of people live it, where you wait for certainty before you move, where every decision has to be fully justified before you act on it. And I understand the appeal of that. Certainty is comfortable. But here's what I've noticed. The opportunities that end up mattering most rarely come with a full information package. They come as a feeling, a door that looks interesting, a phone call that makes the room laugh. The skill, and I do think it's a skill, is learning to read your own signals, to distinguish between the feeling that tells you something is genuinely worth pursuing and the feeling that's just novelty or ego or avoidance. That discernment takes time to develop. It takes getting some calls right, some wrong, being honest with yourself about which was which. Now, failure often leads to success. It starts with not dismissing the signal just because the room finds it funny. 11 lawyers laughed that day. I'm glad I wasn't the 12th. You know, if you've had a moment like that, a door that felt worth opening even when the people around you didn't see it, I genuinely love to hear about it. Drop it in the comments. And if you're in the middle of one of those right now, still weighing it, still not sure, maybe just sit with this. You don't need all the answers before you ask the question. Sometimes you just need to be the one person in a room who doesn't laugh. I'll see you next Thursday.